This is Majin, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I know other people are doing a best of 2012, and I don't want to necessarily do that. I want to do my favorite stories or my favorite titles of 2012. So there may not necessarily be the very best, but I think that overall these are some of the titles that I look forward to reading the most. So what I'll do is I'll first throw out the manga out of the way. First one is One Piece. One Piece, I know a lot of people dismiss it because of the art style. And yes, I understand that it may not be the most attractive, and yes, I fully understand that it's just a typical fight story, but when you actually go into the actual characterization and you get into the motivations of people and you go into the action, this is leaps and bounds far above what a typical shonen style story is. And the story that took place just recently was just amazing. And keep in mind, this is just the ones that were released in the US and not the Japanese ones yet. And next up is Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail is very similar in style as One Piece. Again, this is another story where they don't necessarily hate each other like Dragon Ball or some of the other ones. It's more about family, and even when they are against each other in a sense, they're it's more like a rivalry, but it's like a brotherly rivalry, and they always come together. And Fairy Tail is another one that's truly enjoyable. It's funny, really good action, and this is one that I look forward to. Now, for Image, the first one was Manhattan Project. Now, I know I haven't talked a lot about Manhattan Project because I've been buying the trade rather than the single issues. This is put out by Image Comics and written by Jonathan Hickman. Now, Manhattan Project is basically a weird what-if type storyline where it's like World War II time period, and what they do is the government builds, they get all their scientists, and they're building dimensional gateways, and they meet aliens. And I thought this was really enjoyable. There were some twists and turns along the way, and I loved watching, or reading, I should say, the alternate universe that this story takes place. And I really do look forward to further trades for this book. If you haven't picked up Manhattan Project, I understand that I don't give this nearly enough credit that it deserves, but please do yourself a favor and give it a try. Now, I don't think you can really do a best of without including The Walking Dead. I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on it, other than it's The Walking Dead. It's amazing, and if you're not reading it, why not? I mean, because it's such a good story. Even if you don't like zombies, it's not necessarily the zombies that make it interesting. It's the people and how they react to this crazy, deadly situation. Next up is Invincible. Invincible, to me, is probably one of the best superhero stories that is out in comics. For me, it's probably the closest thing that I would get to a manga style superhero comic, because you do have one creator, or I should say one writer, and he's the driving force, and he has an overall story to tell. It's not, well, the Green Goblin hasn't been in here for a while, so we'll use him, or hey, this new writing team loves Doctor Doom, so we're going to throw him in. It's none of that nonsense. It's a story that has so far a beginning, and I'm not sure how far this is going to go, but issue 100 is going to be, I believe, what we're going to see is a game changer in terms of what's going to happen within Invincible. If no matter who lives, who dies, I don't think anybody is going to be the same after that. And because you have a consistent writing, a creative team behind this book, you can actually enforce those changes that occur. And it's like I said, this has just been a pleasure to read. It is extremely violent, which, this is something that I would expect to happen. I don't care if Superman is a goody two-shoes and Boy Scout that Batman says he is. People are going to get busted up, and this really shows that happening. Okay, for DC, I was kind of torn, but I think what we have to really look at is Scott Snyder's Batman. The Court of Owls was... It started off a little slow, I thought, but then it just quickly went into overdrive, and I think it really pushed Batman into whole new areas of his sanity. I think I think there was, I guess you can say there was a little bit of cop-out here and there, and unnecessary storytelling in terms of Batman's background and creating new lore. I think overall, if you just took that part out of it, the Court of Owls really turned out to be a very formidable foe, and I loved the art style of Greg Capullo with Scott Snyder's writing. It was just, overall, I thought it was just a perfect match, and I think Capullo really captured the insanity that Bruce Wayne was going through. And Batman continues to be one of my titles that I'm really looking forward to reading, with the death of the family. It's just been a home run after home run with this run. Now, DC, I was torn between a bunch of titles like Animal Man and Swamp Thing, and I think those titles lost a lot of steam. They just didn't... I don't think they were able to sustain themselves over the long haul in terms of the story that they're trying to tell. But I think out of the rest of the 52 launch, for me, Aquaman was out of left field. Like Animal Man and Swamp Thing, they were titles that... These three were titles that nobody would give any credit to. They were supposed to, especially Aquaman, should have been top tier, but they just dropped to maybe a C grade hero. But under the New 52 launch, those three titles just rapidly became something to read. But I think Aquaman under Jeff Johns has been... It's just a surprise, and it's just... I'm reimagining of a character that was a joke. Say he's a joke in this, beginning parts of the story, and then show how wrong we all were. Unfortunately, the page isn't in this one, but if you remember the Justice League, one of the early Justice Leagues, when Aquaman shows up for the first time, and he has that gigantic shark jump out of the water and eat the ship. I think that showed everybody, that this Aquaman is not the same as your dad's Aquaman. And I think the first story arc with the undersea creatures was brutal. They were a great setup for what's to come with the Throne of Atlantis, and I think Jeff Johns has really set himself a good platform for the Throne of Atlantis. I mentioned before in an earlier review of Throne of Atlantis, to me it seemed like I've already read that story before with a Marvel's crossover annual years ago, but that's a little nagging voice that's in the back of my head. But I think everything that I've seen, at least so far, through Aquaman and in that first issue, it's going to be a lot different. This is not a Tuma. This is going to be a major disaster. It's on the verge of happening, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. Now, Justice League, I would have put Justice League on this list too, but I think if Jim Lee stayed on it in a more consistent basis, I think it's something that I would have enjoyed a lot more. And keep in mind, when I say consistent basis, I know he's done a lot of issues, but to me, it's like, you know, I don't, if I remember correctly, the book was a little late here and there, or sorry, not late. It was more scheduling. It was purposely scheduled, so it didn't have that consistency that I would have liked to have, you know, to keep me interested. Like if you look at what Marvel's doing with some of their books, it's just bang, 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 bang. They're just turning them out and feeding us. And for something like the Justice League, that's what I wanted. I want something that's gonna get me involved. I want something that's going to make me want to read it. And I think while starting off with Darkseid, it started big. And I understand that you needed to start big with the Justice League. To me, I think it just gave us what we wanted. And that's not... I think that's a little... It hurt it a little bit for me. Now, I do think Earth 2, though, has definitely been a pleasure to read also. The art style is really good, the writing is really good, and I'm really enjoying learning these new characters. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of. Okay. Now, next up on my list is X-Force. Now, this is Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force, and you know, every single time we hear from Marvel, when they do an X-Men title where it's, hey, we're gonna have this a ninja black team that strikes at the villains before they do their nastiness, we know how that is. They do it the first story arc and then it just dies, that whole concept. X-Force, that is not like that at all. These guys were deadly. You know, you had Wolverine, Psylocke, Archangel, Deadpool, Phantom X. It was fantastic. You know, from that very first story arc with Apocalypse, it set the tone, and while it might have slowed down a little bit here and there, it ended with a bang. It did something to Wolverine where it's rare when you ever see something that could be character changing. Now, I understand that stuff isn't going to carry over into other things until another writer remembers that it occurred, but you know, it was a good ending, and that's something that's rare when, you know, we have a creative team start a book and end it, and then it ended really well. It was basically, you can tell Remender said, okay, this is my time to leave, and he left at the right moment. Phenomenal. Even the art. It's not even a traditional style artwork. Even though we had different artists throughout the story, it was just stellar. Unfortunately, this is one of those books, I think, that not as many people are going to appreciate until they start really reading Uncanny Avengers, and then that's when they'll change. And hopefully comic stores will say, hey, by the way, Uncanny X-Force. Okay, next up is Wolverine and the X-Men. Now, while I think Aaron's Wolverine and the X-Men is slipping with their latest story, I love everything about this title before that. You know, like, to me, with the X-Men, a lot of the X titles, it's all gritty, it's dark, you know, you have death and destruction, and it, you know, sometimes it gets too much. And by too much, I mean it's like it's the same thing. And you know, it's just what's the next feature villain of the week? Is it Apocalypse this week? Is it Sinister next week? You know, that's what I mean. Now, with Wolverine and the X-Men, it goes back to the school. It takes a bunch of New Mutant characters, and New Mutant, I mean New Mutants, not the old comic, and it puts them into the school setting, and it's just entertaining to read. It's fun, and I think that's something that the X titles have sorely been lacking, is just fun. And there's a lot of craziness that goes on in the school, and I think this is something that really needed to happen for the X-Men, just to give us something different. Now, I know I haven't been reading X Factor, but from everything that I've heard from people, X Factor is another one of those types of books that's different under the X banner. And I think that those types of titles should be encouraged because, you know, what's the difference really between reading Uncanny X-Men and All New X-Men and everything other adjective X-Men? It's the same thing. All you're doing is you're just changing a team whenever it's convenient for you, and new featured villain of the week. And titles like Wolverine and the X-Men, it's different. It's fresh, and under Aaron, it's been very entertaining. Now, I know that I'm also leaving out a bunch of other titles like the Marvel Now. A lot of the Marvel Now I haven't really put in here because I think it's too early. Like even though I am enjoying Uncanny Avengers, and I'm really enjoying All New X-Men. I think that these things just started, and I don't think it's fair necessarily to put those in like one of my true favorites of the year. I would have put in the Avengers and New Avengers, but I think those titles have been inconsistent, and I think sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. So I'm not. I don't feel comfortable with that, and because I never really always look forward to reading it, like I have been predominantly with these other titles. And finally, we have Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I understand this is the Ends of the Earth trade, but I think what we really need to do is we need to look at the entire run that Slott has done here. If you were going back, remember, to Brand New Day, and that was a monumental, I'm just going to call it a monumental craziness of epic proportions. You had some fans who loved it, you had some fans who went, oh, something new, I'm going to give it a try, and you had a bunch of fans who cursed everybody involved. And rightfully so, because of the way it was handled. Now, I think a lot of people had a lot of resentment towards Joe Q and JMS, and I think JMS got kind of stuck because I don't know, if I remember correctly, I don't think he really wanted to do that kind of story, but Joe Q just forced it in because it was an editorial decision. And even though at the time the Brand New Day storyline did allow freshness to occur, I think a lot of fans were, while it still sold well, I think a lot of fans were hesitant or angry about it. Then comes Slott, and Slott changed, for me, everything about my feelings towards Spider-Man. I was one of the people who was against Brand New Day, but I picked up a couple issues here and there because out of curiosity. But what really hit me was how they re-envisioned the villains. I thought taking the time to do small little story arcs for each villain, updating them, giving them new motivations in some cases, new costumes, and in some cases, like the Lizard, they even had new powers. And I thought that was it's exactly what Spider-Man needed. It needed something fresh. I mean, you gave Spider-Man a brand new day, but you never gave the villains a brand new day. And one by one, that's what they got. Then along came, Spider Island and Big Time and Ends of the Earth, and everybody knew something bad was going to happen to Peter, because you don't have a lot of good things happen to Peter Parker without something bad right around the corner. And I think Big Time, that storyline was the sign of bad, horrible things to occur. Now, the way 2012 ended with Spider-Man, it couldn't be any worse for Peter Parker. For some people, they took it, to close to heart, and they cursed Slott, gave him death threats, and other people, of course, are an exact opposite. I think with Superior Spider-Man, I think it's in a sense it's now our version of Brand New Day. It's giving us a fresh look. It's giving us a fresh start. I don't necessarily think Spider-Man needs it, but I think the comic industry needs something. We had the New 52, which was extremely successful. We had Marvel now that it's hit and miss with some of these titles. Like some titles are selling better than others, but I think with Spider-Man, it needed something. It needed something to spark interest in the character again. And I understand that people are cursing Slott, saying, "How could you do this? This is a permanent change." Look, Slott has never said once that this is permanent. And this thing is gonna be on a cycle, just like the death of Johnny Storm. It's gonna go a year, maybe 2 years, maybe they're looking for an anniversary issue, a reason to bring him back, and Peter will be back. The minute Slott is off the title and a new writer comes on, they're gonna forget certain things. They're not gonna like certain things, and don't worry, Peter Parker will be back in one way, shape, or another. But for right now, let's just enjoy the unknown. And I think that's another thing that comics really don't give us, the unknown. With Avengers, yeah, we know that they're going to fight a villain, and we know that the action may or may not be good, the story may or may not be good, but we know what the outcome is. Heroes win. And I think Slott is giving us the unknown. And for that, I really do think that this became a pleasure to read, because it's just something in the story that makes you just want to read it and get to that next issue. And I think with Superior, it's definitely doing that right now. I want to read that next issue. I want to read Daredevil and Spider-Man, the Superior's first encounter, and how they react to that. I want to read what happens when powerful telepaths somehow go into his mind and figure it out. Does Doctor Strange's spell even apply now anymore? What happens with the Johnny Storm? He can probably figure it out too. That's what I'm saying is this is a great time for us, for Spider-Man fans, because we're getting something familiar, slightly repackaged, and it's interesting again. There's one other thing that I'm going to throw out here, and that's surprisingly AVX. And I'm not necessarily throwing this out for the reasons you think this is. I'm throwing this out for 2 reasons. One is AVX basically closed an entire chapter of a history of Marvel. Now, by that I mean, if you look at Avengers Disassembled, you have, like the death of Hawkeye, you had the Avengers torn apart, Vision blew up, Jack of Hearts died, and the Avengers, it was for an Avenger fan, it was insane. You had House of M, the No More Mutants, you had, let's see what else was there. There was, Magneto becoming a hero villain type thing. You had the New Avengers. The New Avengers was like basically what DC has been trying to do for years and could never do. And the surprising thing is, Bendis was able to take a couple key characters, like Spider-Man and Wolverine, Cap and Iron Man, mix it in with a bunch of lower tier heroes. So like you had Luke Cage, you had Iron Man, not Iron Man, Iron Fist. There was Doctor Strange, Mockingbird, and he turned it into an amazing title. And I know people are against Bendis because of his writing style, but if you look at what he was overall accomplishing, I think he succeeded on multiple levels. And when you look at, I mean, I have to imagine this was a plan all along. Maybe they didn't have all the details, but with AVX, they successfully closed everything. You know, you closed the Avenger problem, the disassembled problem. You closed, you know, the problem, the what was going on with Wanda. You closed the mutant issue. You know, the fact that you didn't have New Mutants. Mutants are now being born again. You even resolved the Phoenix problem, and you not only ended everything, for the most part, resetting things back to where they were, but you've created a brand new frontier, so to speak. You have Cyclops as an enemy, teaming up with, you know, Magneto, which is, who would have thought that ever would have happened. You have now, you know, you used to have an Avenger universe and an X-Men universe in the same shared universe. And remember, if you go back through the interviews for Civil War, they didn't include the X-Men because they wanted it to be an Avenger-centric storyline, and because the X-Men had their own thing going on. So they finally combined everything into one shared universe. You know, you have a shifting of creative teams, and in some cases, I think the creativity that's coming out is amazing. You know, Thor: God of Thunder is solid. Again, Hulk is really good. Deadpool, you know, who would have thought Deadpool would still be entertaining when the creators change? But Deadpool's good. You know, we're still waiting for Superior. We're still waiting for what the Secret Avengers is going to be like. The new Avengers just started, so you know there is some uncertainty along the way, but you know Marvel has a strong foundation, you know, and I think if you look at between Marvel and DC, DC has already blown their guns already. They have no more ammo to give, but Marvel is still, I think there's still some surprises, and I think the writers and creative staff that they have on their titles are going to send us into a whole new area, and it all because of this. Now, the other reason why I'm even including, there's two actually reasons why I'm including this. One is because if you buy the hardcover, it comes with a digital print. There's a code that allows you to download this book, which if you went to Barnes & Noble, all of these books are open, so who knows if the codes are even good. But if you can find a sealed one, you know, probably like on Amazon, then that code will still be good. The second thing about this that I think they did a fantastic job with is it includes not only AVX, but it also has verses. So basically what you're doing is you're getting 2 trades in 1 volume. And I really applaud this. I mean, I was surprised when I heard that. Because like, if you look at the new trade paperbacks that are coming out, it has both. Now, don't get me wrong, AVX has issues. It's not the greatest storyline of all times. But if you look at what it's accomplished, that is... it's a very good thing. Now, I know I didn't include it, but the Thunderbolts is another title that I think has always been for me. It's been a pleasure to read, and I think it's one of those titles that it's underappreciated, and because I think the direction that it's going, it's just, you know, it's now going to be long forgotten. But there is a golden year for the Thunderbolts. And the Thunderbolts is another one that I really enjoyed, and I wish more people would have picked it up. anyways, I think that's from what I can remember for the ones I enjoyed the most. I would like to hear what stories you guys enjoyed the most, and I know there's somebody out there going, Majinoni, you forgot about Saga. And I'm reading Saga now, and I didn't think it's fair to put my opinion on it when I haven't finished at least the first trade. But from what I have read, it's a very interesting story, and I think it's this is gonna be one that I'm gonna enjoy. So you can hold your horses. Scalped is another one that I'm thinking of getting, and I shouldn't say I'm thinking of getting. It's on my list, so I'm going to be getting Scalped. So you can cross that off. You don't have to yell at me for not getting that. And I can't think of any other Image titles offhand. Chew, but I'm way behind on Chew, so that's why I didn't include Chew. I'm enjoying G.I. Joe, but I think I didn't put that in there because, you know, it's not that serious. I mean, it's serious, but it's not that big of a serious book. But anyways, I think this covers a bunch of different stuff. I'd like to hear what you guys thought was your favorite reads. What is your favorite story? It doesn't have to necessarily be the best. What's your favorite? Like the Facebook link, I give out free comic codes. If you have any other comments or questions, let me know. Rate the video up or down. Let me know what you think. And I'll have more reviews and stuff later. So until